Throughout history, many people have made decisions that have changed the world forever. Some of these changes were good, like when Louis Pasteur invented pasteurization, which has saved countless lives by killing off deadly bacteria in our food. But other times people make decisions that end up doing more harm than good. When German chemist Friedrich Bayer created the herbicide Roundup, it was intended to help farmers get higher crop yields. But over time, scientists have linked Roundup to serious health issues like cancer. It wasn't the outcome that Bayer wanted when he created the chemical. Sometimes these mistakes are so big they can change the course of history. And today, we're going to look at some of the biggest human mistakes that changed history forever. So let's jump right into it. Mistake No. 1. Starting a war that killed millions over an insult. In 1219, a local governor in what is now Uzbekistan attacked a Mongol trade caravan. Now, the leader of the Mongols, Genghashkhan, was not pleased about this. He sent a group of ambassadors to the governor's master, the ruler of the Khwarezmian Empire, to demand compensation for the losses. But this meeting did not go how Genghashkhan hoped. The ambassadors suggested that the Shah submit to the authority of the Mongols in exchange for keeping his head. But the Shah didn't take too kindly to these suggestions. He decided to execute the Mongol envoys and send back their severed heads to Genghashkhan. And Genghashkhan was not happy about this. Losing a few traders would have been an inconvenience, but getting disrespected like this was unacceptable, and Genghashkhan responded to the insult in the worst way possible. He immediately declared war on the Khwarezmian Empire and led his army across Central Asia, conquering city after city, including the capital. Eventually, the Shah tried to escape Genghis Khan's wrath by hiding in a cave, but his soldiers found him and executed him anyway. Genghis Khan's army continued to ravage through the empire, pillaging and burning cities, until finally the surviving members of the royal family submitted to him and paid him a hefty sum of money. The war had caused widespread devastation, and it is estimated that as many as 11 million people died as a result. But despite all this death and destruction, the war between Genghis Khan and the Khwarezm Empire is often remembered as a clash between two great civilizations. Historians debate whether or not the Mongols were more advanced than their contemporaries in the West. But either way, the war had a profound impact on the course of history. After defeating the Khwarezm Empire, Genghis Khan turned his attention to China and the Middle East. His grandson, Kublai Khan, would eventually unite these regions under the rule of the Mongols, creating the largest contiguous land-based empire in history. Mistake No. 2. Inventing something that saved millions but destroyed the ozone layer. In the early 20th century, the world was facing a number of problems that seemed impossible to solve. Cars were polluting the air in major cities. Refrigeration systems were inefficient and dangerous, and propellants for rockets and airplanes were hard to come by. But one man was up for the task: Thomas Midgley. He was a brilliant chemist who was able to combine elements in new ways to create products that had never been seen before. For example, in 1928, Midgley invented a type of refrigerant called CFC, or chloroform. These molecules were made up of carbon atoms bound to fluorine and chlorine atoms, and they were perfect for use in refrigerators. Not only were CFCs better than the refrigerants being used at the time, but they were also cheap and easy to produce. This discovery made Midgley famous in the scientific community, and he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1946. But there was still one problem that needed to be solved, and that was the problem of air conditioning. Midgley went back to work and eventually developed a type of CFC that could be used as a propellant for airplanes and rockets. Once again, he had solved a major problem that had plagued the scientific community for decades. Unfortunately, Midgley's success would ultimately lead to his downfall. As it turns out, the CFCs he had invented were extremely harmful to the ozone layer. The CFC molecules would rise into the atmosphere, where they would be broken down by ultraviolet radiation from the sun. This would release chlorine atoms, which would then go on to destroy countless ozone molecules. The ozone layer is important because it protects life on Earth from the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays. So when the CFCs started to break down the ozone layer, it was a major disaster. Eventually, scientists discovered the problem, and the world took action. In 1987, the Montreal Protocol was signed, which banned the production of CFCs. Today, the ozone layer is slowly recovering, but it will be many years before it returns to its normal state. Mistake No. 3. Causing the collapse of a civilization through greed. In the year 987, the Viking explorer Eric the Red was banished from Iceland for killing a fellow Icelander. He set sail west and discovered a new land which he named Greenland. Over the next few centuries, many Vikings settled in Greenland and established a thriving community. They built farms, fished, and traded with other European nations. But as time went on, the Vikings became greedy. They started to overexploit the land, cutting down forests and hunting too many animals. This caused the soil to become barren and the climate to cool, making life in Greenland very difficult. At the same time, the Vikings were becoming more warlike. They started to raid other settlements for food and resources, which eventually led to the collapse of their civilization in Greenland around 1450. But the Vikings weren't the only ones to blame. Climate change also played a role in the downfall of their society. As the Earth entered the Little Ice Age, temperatures in Greenland dropped significantly, making it even harder to grow food. All of this led to the abandonment of most settlements and the return of the Vikings to Scandinavia. Mistake no, for launching a military campaign that led to millions of deaths. In 1939, Adolf Hitler launched a military campaign against Poland. This marked the beginning of World War II, a global conflict that would last 6 years and result in the deaths of an estimated 70 to 85 million people. Hitler's invasion of Poland was met with little resistance, and within 2 weeks, the Polish army had been defeated. He then turned his attention to France, which he also quickly conquered. At this point, it seemed like nothing could stop Hitler and the German war machine. But then the British and French forces made a stand at the beaches of Dunkirk. Despite being outnumbered, they were able to hold off the Germans long enough for the evacuation of Allied troops. This unexpected resistance gave the Allies time to regroup, and eventually they were able to defeat the Germans. However, this victory came at a great cost. Millions of people had been killed, and entire cities had been destroyed. But despite the devastation, the Allies were victorious. Mistake no. 5. Deciding to start a war instead of solving underlying issues. In 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was assassinated in Sarajevo. This event sparked a diplomatic crisis in Europe. Austria-Hungary wanted to punish the Serbs for the assassination, but the other European powers were divided over how to respond. The French and British governments were reluctant to get involved, but the Germans supported Austria unconditionally. Eventually, the Austrians were able to get the support they needed, and they declared war on Serbia. This marked the beginning of World War I, a conflict that would last for years and result in the deaths of an estimated 15 to 22 million people. The war was fought between two alliances, the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. The Triple Entente was made up of France, Russia, and Great Britain, while the Triple Alliance was made up of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. The fighting was intense, and at times the Allies were pushed to the brink of defeat. But ultimately, the Triple Entente was victorious. Now we want to hear from you. What do you think is the biggest human mistake that changed history? Let us know your thoughts, and thank you for watching.